Everyone has a story about Las Vegas, and when you actually listen, there are only two. The first story is about hubris. In this version, Las Vegas is a monument to human arrogance. A city of fountains and golf courses and swimming pools built in the middle of a desert that gets 4 inches of rain a year. A neon Babylon that never should have existed, and is finally getting exactly what it deserves as the water runs dry and the heat climbs past 120 degrees. It is a morality tale, and it ends with the desert taking the city back. The second story is the opposite. In this version, Las Vegas is a miracle. The city that saw the crisis coming, cut its water use nearly in half, ripped out its lawns, recycled almost every drop, and proved that human ingenuity can engineer its way through anything. It is a success story, a model for the arid West, and it ends with Las Vegas as the place that figured it out. Both of these stories are told constantly. Both of them feel satisfying. And both of them are wrong. Not wrong in their facts, exactly. Wrong in the way a comfortable lie is wrong. Each one lets you stop thinking at the moment thinking gets uncomfortable. The morality tale lets you feel superior. The success story lets you feel reassured. And the actual truth about Las Vegas is the thing that sits underneath both of them. The thing that neither the critics who want it punished, nor the boosters who want it celebrated, are willing to say out loud. So let us say it. Because once you see it, you cannot go back to either of the easy stories. And you will start to notice that the reason nobody wants to admit this particular truth is that it does not let anyone off the hook, including you. Start by taking apart the first lie, the collapse story, because it is emotionally satisfying and factually backwards. The doom narrative treats Las Vegas as the villain of the water crisis. The greedy desert city, drinking the river dry with its fountains and its spectacle. It is a story people love because it is a morality play, and in a morality play, the sinner has to be punished. The problem is that, by the numbers, Las Vegas is not the sinner. Of all 7 states that share the Colorado River, Nevada holds the smallest allocation by far, under 2% of the entire river. And Las Vegas does not even use all of that. The city recycles nearly 99% of every drop of water used indoors, capturing it, treating it, and returning it to Lake Mead. Between 2002 and 2025, it cut its water use per person by 58%. Even as it added roughly 876,000 new residents. And the total amount of water the city consumes actually went down. It used less water as a far larger city. And the dancing fountains at the Bellagio, the single image everyone reaches for as proof of Las Vegas excess, all the casinos on the Strip combined account for just 3 to 4% of the city's water consumption. So the collapse story is a lie in a very specific way. The city that supposedly should not exist is, by the actual data, the most disciplined major water user in the American West. If Las Vegas is in danger, and it is not because it sinned. There is no satisfying punishment here, because there was no crime. That is the first uncomfortable thing to admit, and the doom crowd will not admit it, because it ruins the story. Now take apart the second lie, the miracle story, because it is even more consoling, and therefore even more dangerous. Yes, Las Vegas conserved brilliantly. That part is true, and it deserves genuine credit. But here is what the success story quietly leaves out. All of that discipline changed almost nothing about whether Las Vegas actually has a future. Because the thing that decides whether Las Vegas has water is not Las Vegas. The Colorado River, which Las Vegas depends on for roughly 90% of its water, is being drained overwhelmingly by other users. Agriculture consumes about 74% of all the water taken directly from the river, roughly 3 times as much as every city and industry in 7 states combined. A single category of crop, the hay and alfalfa grown to feed cattle, consumes about 1/3 of the entire river, more than every city put together. And underneath all of it sits a foundational error, the 1922 agreement that divided the river, was written assuming it carried at least 16.5 million acre-feet a year, when its real long-term flow is closer to 12 or 13. More water was promised than ever existed. And Lake Mead, the reservoir that holds Las Vegas's supply, has fallen about 170 feet since the year 2000, and now sits near the lowest level since it was first filled, grinding down toward Dead Pool, the elevation below which no water passes through Hoover Dam at all. So here is what the miracle story will not tell you. Las Vegas did everything right, and it is still trapped. It made itself the model citizen of a river system that is failing for reasons that have nothing to do with Las Vegas, and that Las Vegas cannot fix no matter how many lawns it tears out. The brutal truth the boosters cannot admit is that individual virtue is nearly irrelevant at the scale of the actual problem. Conservation is real, and it is not salvation. You can be the best behaved passenger on a ship that is still sinking. So throw out both stories. What is left? What is left has no clean moral, and that is exactly why nobody wants to tell it. Las Vegas is not a monument to hubris being punished for its sins, and it is not a triumph of adaptation being rewarded for its virtue. It is something with no satisfying ending in either direction. A city that has done nearly everything within its own power, and whose survival still rests almost entirely on forces beyond its power. It is living proof that in this era, doing everything right and remaining fundamentally exposed are not opposites. They are the same condition, experienced at the same time. That is the first layer of the truth. The story has no villain and no hero. And people hate stories like that, because a story with no villain gives you no one to blame, and a story with no hero gives you no one to save you. Both the punishment and the redemption are more comforting than the reality, which is that a city can be both blameless and doomed, both brilliant and trapped, and that neither its guilt nor its cleverness will decide what happens to it. But there is a second layer, and it is harder, because it is about who actually pays. When people say Las Vegas is surviving, or Las Vegas is adapting, that sentence hides something. It treats the city as a single thing, as if survival were distributed evenly across 2.5 million people. It is not. And neither is the danger. Consider the heat, because the heat is where the hiding becomes indefensible. Las Vegas is the fastest warming major city in the United States, warming at roughly 3 times the global rate, a place that hit 120 degrees in July of 2024 and builds one of the most intense urban heat islands in the country. And that heat kills. In 2024, in Clark County, heat was a factor in over 500 deaths, with thousands more people arriving in emergency rooms. But it did not kill evenly. It killed the outdoor workers, the elderly, the sick, and above all the poor and the unhoused, including the roughly 12 to 1,500 people who live in the storm drain tunnels beneath the Strip. Because a concrete tunnel is the coolest place a person with nothing can find in the hottest city in the country. And the heat itself is sorted by income, physically, on the map. Research on the valley has found that neighborhoods where most residents are people of color have on average a third less tree canopy than wealthier, whiter areas. And the poorest neighborhoods have over 40% less. That gap is not cosmetic. It means that on the same afternoon, under the same sun, some neighborhoods run as much as 9 degrees hotter than others, determined largely by which streets got shade decades ago and which ones got asphalt. So here is the second brutal truth. When someone says Las Vegas is adapting, they mean a specific Las Vegas. They mean the Las Vegas of chilled towers and recycled fountains and cooled cars. The other Las Vegas, the one that builds those towers and cleans them and delivers to them, absorbs the actual cost of the heat in bodies. The city's survival is quietly subsidized by the suffering of the people least able to refuse it. The abstraction survives. Specific people do not. Let me make that concrete, because abstractions are how we avoid looking. Picture a person on the east side of the valley, a renter in a neighborhood where the median household income is around $32,000 a year, on a street with 40% less shade than the wealthy parts of town. It is an August afternoon, and the temperature the news reports for the city is 112, but their block, with no canopy and nothing but pavement, is running hotter than that. They cannot plant a tree because they do not own the lot. They cannot replace the failing air conditioner because it belongs to the landlord. And the electricity bill to run it, on the days it works, competes directly with food and with medication. The heat has already started taking its cost from them, months before it would ever put anyone in an ambulance, in the chronic conditions, the heart disease, the diabetes, that turn a hot week into a fatal one. That person is exactly who the phrase Las Vegas is adapting writes out of the sentence. A few miles west, the fountains are running on recycled water, and the casino floors are held at 68 degrees. Both of those places are Las Vegas. The heat is the same heat. Only one of them is safe. And any honest account of the city has to hold both in view at once. Which is precisely what the comfortable stories are designed to avoid. And now the third layer, which is the biggest one, and the one that finally implicates everyone watching. Because there is a reason people love to talk about Las Vegas, and it is not affection. The reason both the doom story and the miracle story are so popular is that they both let you treat Las Vegas as a freak, an outlier, a place so absurd, so extreme, so much its own strange thing, that whatever happens to it has nothing to do with you or your city. That is the most comfortable lie of all, and it is the most false. Because Las Vegas is not the exception. It is the leading edge. Las Vegas is the first major American city to cross fully into what you might call artificial habitability. A place that, for a growing part of every year, can only be lived in by machine, sustained by air conditioning it cannot switch off, and water that must be rationed, recycled, and imported, sitting one prolonged grid failure or one failed river negotiation away from genuine catastrophe. And it is not alone out there. It is simply ahead. Phoenix, 300 miles away, endured 113 consecutive days at or above 100 degrees in 2024, 70 of them above 110. And it is building the exact same machinery Las Vegas built. The cooling, the shade programs, the dedicated government heat office. The entire Sun Belt, the fastest growing region in the United States. The place Americans are moving toward by the millions is following Las Vegas, not laughing at it. Las Vegas is what adapted actually looks like when you arrive there, and adapted is far grimmer than the brochure admits. It is life lived indoors, on machines, on a water supply that must not fail, with the danger sorted by income and the cost paid by the people with the least. We point at Las Vegas to feel better about our own cities, to reassure ourselves that the strange, hot, thirsty future is happening over there, to someone else, in a place that had it coming. But Las Vegas is a mirror. It is showing the rest of the country its own near future, a few years early, with the consequences already visible for anyone willing to look. Which brings us, finally, to the question in the title. Why is this the truth nobody wants to admit? And the answer is that almost everyone has a reason to look away. The critics want the morality tale, because hubris punished is a satisfying story that asks nothing of them. The boosters and the water managers want the success story, both because they genuinely earned it and because the city's entire economy depends on the belief that Las Vegas is safe. The 40 million visitors a year want the fantasy, and the fantasy requires that they never see the tunnels or the shadeless east side streets, and the rest of the country wants Las Vegas to be a freak, because if it is a freak, then its future is not theirs. Every single party has an incentive to believe one of the two comfortable stories. Almost no one has an incentive to say the uncomfortable synthesis out loud, that the city did everything right and is still trapped, that its survival is paid for by its poorest residents, and that it is not a warning about one strange place, but a preview of many ordinary ones. Now, here is where honesty cuts both ways. Because the brutal truth is not the doom you might be bracing for. This is not a prediction that Las Vegas is about to die. It may well endure for a very long time. Wealth buys an enormous amount of adaptation, and Las Vegas has more of it and more foresight than almost anywhere facing these conditions. It built a $1.5 billion intake to draw water from the very bottom of Lake Mead. It started conserving 20 years before it had to. The city that saw the crisis coming earliest is genuinely the best prepared to outlast it, and the conservation was not pointless, either. It bought real time, and in a slow-moving crisis, time is not nothing. Time is almost everything. So the brutal truth is not the cheap one. Las Vegas is doomed. It is subtler and harder to sit with. It is that survival and safety are not the same thing. That a city can persist for decades and still be fundamentally exposed. That the cost of endurance can be real and can fall on people who never got a vote. And that the confident story we tell about a place, whether it is the punishment story or the redemption story, is very often just a way of not looking directly at it. Las Vegas will probably still be here in 50 years. The questions both comfortable stories carefully dodge are the only ones that matter. Here in what condition? And safe for whom? So picture the two machines, both running right now, tonight, in the same city. On the Strip, the fountains rise and fall on their schedule, lit and choreographed and genuinely beautiful, throwing water into the desert air, water that was recycled from the city's own drains and will be recycled again. The fantasy, working exactly as designed. And a few miles east, on a street with no trees, a window air conditioner drips onto hot concrete. Straining against an afternoon that the official thermometer downtown will record as many degrees cooler than it actually is on that particular block, cooling a single room for a family whose electricity bill is a monthly negotiation with the rest of their needs. Both machines are running. Both are Las Vegas. Same city, same heat, two completely different sets of odds. Las Vegas is not a monument to hubris, and it is not a miracle of engineering. It is a place that learned to survive in conditions that should not permit a city at all, at a cost it is very carefully arranged not to see, and it is not the last place that will have to make that arrangement. The brutal truth nobody wants to admit is not that Las Vegas is dying. It is that Las Vegas